Great Fairies are the most powerful magic users you encounter in the Zelda series. If Link ever had to fight one, it might be the most challenging enemy he's ever had to face. In this video, we're gonna explore what would happen if a Great Fairy ever did join the ranks of evil, what it would look like, what abilities it would have, and what secret weapon Link would need if he wants to beat it. Let's take a look at a Great Fairy's stat sheet. Her strongest traits are obviously going to be magic and utility. She can do tons of damage with her magical attacks, and with her army of healing fairies, she's constantly going to be regenerating health. But even without her magical powers, she is still an enormous physical creature, granting her respectable stats in strength and health. Her ability to levitate and change size will give her a good score in movement, and while she doesn't wear any armor, spells like Nehru's Love will boost her defense. And looking at these stats, it's clear to see why the Great Fairy would be such a powerful enemy. So when I started to make my own, I modeled it off of the ones from Ocarina of Time. Honestly, the Great Fairies are already a little creepy in that game. That big, high-pitched laugh they do, that's creepy. So for my design, I really wanted to lean into that big personality. You know, they're really boisterous and flamboyant. And I wanted to not just keep that, but push that further to really emphasize that unhinged nature of the Great Fairies. But here's the problem. Right now, we don't have a place or even a reason for this boss fight to exist. We gotta fix that. In the last video, I laid the foundation for this Lost Woods video game, and I talked a little bit about level design, but I didn't really talk about the different stages of the game. In most roguelike games, there are distinct areas you travel throughout the run. Like in Spelunky, even though the individual levels are procedurally generated, you still start in the mines, but then you move on through the jungle, the ice caves, and then the temple. And we can apply this approach to the Lost Woods by creating different areas with unique themes and enemies. And this is also a really cool chance to expand on the lore from Ocarina of Time. So you leave the original forest stage and you enter the fairy domain, where everything is corrupted by dark magic. And when a player finally finds the Great Fairy Fountain, they're probably gonna expect to get healed, but instead they get a boss fight. That'll be a fun little surprise on someone's first playthrough. So speaking of the boss fight, let's get into that. I've always had this theory where if Link tried to fight a Great Fairy, it would just seal him up in a magical crystal where he's totally powerless. After all, the Great Fairies are the ones who granted Link his magical powers, so it makes sense to me that they would be able to negate them just as easily. So if you just hop into the boss fight unprepared, that's exactly what happens to you. Link gets crystallized and tossed out of the fountain. And this is in line with my idea that Link on his own isn't strong enough to defeat a Great Fairy. And if he does want a fighting chance, he definitely needs a secret weapon. And this leads us to the first cool new item that I'm adding to Ocarina of Time, the Shadow Tunic. The Shadow Tunic is an item that you have to find in the fairy domain, and what it does is it changes your physical properties so that you can pass through magical barriers. So that lets you access additional parts of the level, but more importantly, it keeps the Great Fairy from being able to capture you in a crystal. So now you're finally able to fight the Great Fairy, and this is where things start to get hard. So far, I've just come up with 3 different attacks for this boss. There's a move where she sweeps in low and drops a bunch of explosions, a move where she summons a swarm of fairies that you have to dodge, and a powerful kick that sends debris flying towards you. There are only a couple opportunities throughout the cycle where you can get your own attacks in, so the whole battle is this balance between staying out of the danger zone, but staying close enough that you can land your own hits. And once you finally do manage to beat her, you've cleared the fairy domain and you can move on to the rest of the game. And with that, my Lost Woods game finally has its first boss fight. If you didn't watch the video before this one where I started out this project, definitely go check that out. But aside from that, I am finished for today. This was a lot more work than I expected it to be. Boss fights are complicated, I guess. So sorry that this was kind of a shorter episode. Thanks for sticking around, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.